What is up, everyone? So I hope everyone had a fantastic New Year's. Hope everyone had a safe, happy New Year's. Now, it's finally Tuesday, which means parts come in. The holidays kind of screwed everything up, but I finally got my Z1 order in, which means I have my tranny mount, which means I could get my tranny mounted, get my shifter in, get my drive shaft in, and have the full drivetrain hooked up. That's sick. That's a huge part. Having a full system done is really exciting. So we're gonna get to that very soon. Few updates. Yesterday, RJ and I went out and got a couch for the little hangout station, and it ended up being like perfect. I'm stoked for this. I don't know. This is really cool to have. I feel like it's always goals to have a cool hangout spot within a garage with all your sick cars, and so far, this year has started off being goals for me. So thank you everyone who's made this possible throughout the year. This has been such an amazing opportunity to be able to do this whole YouTube thing. It's been a blast so far. It's kind of stressful, but it's super fun. And like I said, I can't thank you guys enough for watching me, I guess, and everyone who's supporting me, grabbing merch and everything else. Like, you guys means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. But let's continue on. So yeah, let's open up the Z1 package. You know what? See this little box right here? They charge me like $50 something for shipping. Isn't that ridiculous? I don't know. I know shipping's a lot, but that's a small box. It doesn't weigh that much. All right. So sweet. I forgot I ordered. They had a sale on couplers, so I ordered a bunch of general 2.5-inch couplers for the intercooler stuff. Some nice black couplers. Whatever. Got the couplers. We got some clamps, and then we got the tranny mount. Beautiful. So I went with the Nismo engine mounts mainly because of convenience. So I went with the Nismo tranny mount to keep the ball rolling. So we'll do that. So yeah, let's get started. All right, first thing we're gonna do, which I should have did, like 2 days ago, is I'm gonna paint the cross member, because though you won't see it, this Z is so clean underneath, it would be like such a shame to put this on there. So I'm gonna scuff this up real quick, spend a little bit of time, paint it, and then we'll work on getting the trans mount on. Look how much crap just came off of that thing. Filthy. All right, I sprayed it, it's drying. I did a horrible job. There's like a million runs on that thing, but you won't see it. Whatever. So this is the shifter assembly for the Z. This part bolts on the transmission. This piece bolts on the car itself. We're gonna be replacing the stock shifter with a short throw. All right, so I lied. We're not gonna put the short throw in. So if you see the bushings on here, the hole is a lot smaller than on here. I forgot my brass bushings for this thing. They're actually at my house. I'm not driving home. It's a waste. It's like an hour. It's a wasted hour. I'm not doing that right now. Put the shifter in, see how the stock throw feels, and then we'll be able to. And I'll throw the short shifter in with the new bushings later on. See the difference in throws. I don't know. In the long run, it'd probably be better to start with the stock throw shifter and then put a short throw in later. So, whatever. We're just gonna throw it in with the stock throw. So, I'm gonna clean this up really quick, and then we're gonna bolt it to the trans. So I decided to paint this plate because it looked like crap. Paint's drying like crap. I'm assuming just because it's so cold in here. I'm a little upset about it, but whatever. You don't actually see this. The center console actually covers this. I just felt like I should do that just, Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been a while since I've done this, so let's see if this works. Oh, I was really hoping that would fit. No worries. This comes off. If you take a bolt off right here, this whole thing slips right off. So I went underneath the car and bolted it to the trans. As you can see, it's just kind of sticking right there. The whole tranny itself is kind of like tilted this way, so I figured it'd be best with the trans mount on now, so it centers in transmission, so the shifting plate will sit accordingly. I'm a little worried though, because the shifter is actually offset slightly to one side. So this is off a left-hand drive car, so I don't think the right-hand drive cars have an offset the opposite way. Maybe they're just both offset one way and the right-hand drive car feels farther away. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Maybe I'll call Roberto and see if it is different, but I don't think so. There's a new Nismo trans mount. So this actually bolts to the trans, and then the cross member bolts to this, and the cross member bolts to the frame, and that's essentially how it goes. And this actually, I'm pretty sure, is for the exhaust hanger. So I'm gonna mount it on this way. Well, it's finally all done. The trans mount, cross member, looks good, feels good. Perfect.
My first mission.
How you doing, Steffi? She's over here playing GTA 5.
Oh, there he is. Look at him.
Boom. We're in place. So as you can see, the shifter is like more offset towards this side, so I'm a little curious at how that's gonna feel being, you know, right-hand drive, because now the shifter is actually farther away from you. But maybe the trans tunnel isn't symmetrical and it's actually centered. Who knows? We'll find out. Bolt this down, bolt the shifter back up, and we should be all set. Look at that. The car officially has a shifter. That is sick. Now we have our clutch pedal and a shifter. It's almost done being manual. This is sick. That looks a lot cooler in here. Nice and tight. Actually kind of like the stock throw. All right, so if you guys didn't see the video from the other day, I have a brand new one-piece aluminum drive shaft by Shaft Masters. Thing's gorgeous. They had a nice holiday sale, so I couldn't say no to it. I was gonna get a steel one, but the aluminum one was only like $40 more. And putting the stock two-piece in with this, we just kind of make it feel a little junky. One piece really makes it feel a lot tighter. And I do want to put a welded diff in here. I know that's gonna be a little controversial with a few dudes. I want to slide this car, but two-piece plus welded diff means a lot of noise, and it just wasn't worth it. So sucked it up, balled out on a drive shaft. Luckily they did a nice holiday sale, so I was gonna throw it in right now. Completely just realized that I lost the Driveshaft bolts, the 4 bolts that bolt onto the diff. They're pretty specific bolts, and I don't want to mess it up, but luckily I texted my boy Roger, and he happened to have a set, of course, and Roger is the 240 plug. For you guys who've watched my videos pretty adamantly, you know that. So he's gonna be leaving a shop in like an hour and a half, and he's just gonna drop them off on his way back home, which is sick. So I'm gonna hold off on that. Decided to stop by after work. RJ, I want you to see something.
What is it?
Go look into the fair lady.
Which side?
That's not a fair lady. That's just a Z.
Oh, this one.
Look what it has now.
A manual transmission.
Look at the shifter. Look at it.
What am I looking at?
The shifter, I just put it in. Look how cool. Has a shifter now.
What I just said, it has a manual transmission.
Well, it's always had a manual trans, but it didn't have a shifter.
I didn't know that.
Looks cool, right?
It's not as cool because I didn't know it didn't have one before.
Oh, well, it didn't, so that's cool.
I hope this backfires on you because that was lame.
All right, so I figured today would be a good day to run the battery cables because I am relocating the battery to the trunk, mainly for looks, just so it's basically out of the bay, nice and clean. Doesn't really affect it much. I usually relocate them in the 240s just because when you put intercooler piping in 240s, it kind of has to run where the battery tray is and you're forced to relocate it, so I'm kind of used to it. Looking in the trunk of the 2+2, it actually is, the whole trunk itself is actually recessed from the plastic molding. So you can see right here, there's actually like 4 inches that recesses it. And what it is there's foam pieces that basically hug the corners, and then the spare tire hovers the whole rear end. On the 2+0, aka there's no back seats, it's all level with the trim, but the rear tire spare is actually just recessed down itself. Okay, this might be a little weird because I might have to like raise the battery, make a raised battery tray, and then mount it just so the carpet sits flush. Worry about that later. But when it comes to running wires from a battery to the front of the car, you can either run it externally or internally. You can run it kind of above the frame rails, near like the brake lines or the fuel lines, or you can run it in the inside of the tier. Sometimes it's safer to run on the outside, sometimes safer on the inside. Usually it's tight so it could rub away insulation. On the outside, obviously you could hit stuff externally. Mainly if you run a fuse at the battery terminal, you're safe because if it shorts itself out, it'll just blow the fuse and your car won't light on fire. So we're gonna do that. I decided I'm gonna run it on the outside because on the Z, unlike the 240, the interior on the Z is ran actually very, very tight. So there's not much room to snake a battery cable through. I did it on the Red Z, had to run it through the center console and it made stuff fit really tight and I wasn't a fan of it. The carpet is just ran too tight. I'm not complaining about it. It's nice. With the 240, there's a lot of like hovering in the corners of the carpet so you could fit it in between there. So the cheapest way to do this is to order a 2-gauge welding cable. You can get this online. It's about $1.70 a foot or something, sometimes cheaper. If you order it specifically for battery cables, of course they're gonna raise the price. You can get it in store, but they're gonna charge you like $5 a foot, which adds up. Heavy duty welding cable. Perfect. As you can see, it's thick, but it's nice and flimsy. Haha. So this should make my life a lot easier. So when running it externally, you got to find basically a hole for the cable to get to the outside of the car. I like to use an OEM hole because I hate drilling holes into a car like this. So this hole right here is actually for the fuel sending unit, I believe. I could be wrong, but it looks like it goes to the top of the gas tank. So I pulled off the factory grommet, and I'm gonna run the battery cable through there, and I'll put a new grommet in afterwards, make this all sealed up. All right, so Roger stopped by, and he dropped me off some Driveshaft bolts, which is fantastic. I just wanted to make sure these ones were OEM because they're pretty specific, nothing crazy. But thank you again, Roger, for dropping us off. Like I was talking about the other day, Roger's finally starting Instagram to put up all his used parts for all the 240 stuff. So I'll put that right here. So go check him out. I know for a lot of you guys, it's kind of hard to acquire used 240 parts for a good price. And so Roger is that guy, and he will ship. So get your PayPals ready, go follow him, go buy some stuff. So on the Z, the plug that basically gives the whole chassis power is literally just this one like little 8-gauge wire plug. And I lost the one that came with the car. I think I gave it to the kid with the engine. Luckily, I stole one of these from Jip's Piles of Parts. It's like the same exact plug. And I found like 3 pieces of the right gauge wire, and I had to splice them all together because I couldn't find the length. But it'll look all nice with the wire loom, so they'll be all set. So this is just preparation for the battery wire because this basically has to get power from that. Brian and I concocted this great thing. It looks a little bulky, but I put the chassis power harness on the end of the battery cable. We crimped it all into one crimp, heat shrunk it, and then have it zip tied together. Nice and taut, not going anywhere. Looks pretty clean for, you know, what it is. I'm happy with it.
Fucking wiring specialties right here.
All right, this worked out pretty well. As you can see, I have the harness looped just a little bit, so it gives it some room to basically have the engine flex and stretch. And I was able to use a factory mount on the frame rail right there with a, what are those called? Hookers? What are those?
Not a hooker.
Wire hooks, whatever those. What is that? A wire fastener right there.
It's
I know
clamp.
A clamp. Let me see. Zoom in. There you go.
Wire clamp.
Wire clamp. Zoomed up to the starter. I need to get a new hood for that, so you know, there's no jumping, but we should be all set on that. Now I can start mounting the wire up to the rest of the car all the way back. So this I just gotta tie up later, but I'll do that. I'm gonna do all the wire tying up in one day, but for now, just making sure everything works. So we'll leave it right there. So now that we have the wires all mocked up in the front, I'm working my way back because it's just easier this way. I'm actually just zip tying it to my fuel rails, which might seem a little sketchy to you guys, but it's perfectly fine. Fuel rails are nice and tucked up above the frame rail, and that's where you want the power cable. OEM cars use zip ties to hold up wires. It's a natural thing, it's not sketchy. Like I said, if anything was to happen with the battery cable, the fuse would break at the battery that I'm going to put in, so it wouldn't cause any problems. This is not putting any extra strain on the fuel lines, just because the fuel lines are actually, I like over mounted them, so there's a lot of mounting points on the lines, so it's not putting any excess stress on the fuel lines. Steffi is like 6 missions deep in GTA right now. You've been playing for a while.
Look how cute my car is.
Oh my god.
Nice.
You're getting good though. I'm impressed.
I am. I'm trying.
It's fully zip tied up, fully cut now. Looks very, very nice. Take my word for it. Now, I'll show you. Fuel lines zip tied, all nicey nice, all the way down and to the front. Sorry for the bad lighting. So now we have the battery cable coming out right there. Still need to get a grommet for that, but we'll do that later. So I can finish up underneath the car. I'm gonna go through the drive shaft in right now. Today's been very, very sporadic, back and forth, but we're getting things done. Let's put our nice one piece in now. All right, so my battery's gonna be basically in this location. I'll be using the same battery as this. I always use CRV batteries because they're just kind of like the best fitting battery overall with a good cold cranking amp. As you can see, it's like pretty slim. So I'm gonna say it's gonna be like over here somewhere. There's a lot of give in the wire, so I cut it on the longer side just so when I do add my fuse block in here, I'll have enough wire. So now that we have our power wire, we have to do our ground wire. So the ground wire is pretty easy. You essentially want to put it on a good bare piece of metal that's on a thick surface, because technically the whole car should be grounded. So like the rear frame rail, you just want to pick something that has like a thicker gauge metal as a base. I have a new battery terminal, and I have a copper ring lug, whatever you want to call it. So we're just going to do that. Heat shrink makes everything look so nice and professional. I love it. Make sure you guys get like the marine heat shrink at Harbor Freight if you do get it. It shrinks way more than average heat shrink, and it has an adhesive inside, so it like really makes it stick together, and it looks so nice. I've actually found a bolt in the trunk right down here it's actually a pretty big bolt. It's actually an M12 bolt. It's nice and thick. It's reinforced, and I took the paint off the surface and bolted it down. So I think that should be all set. So let's trim this, put the terminal end on, and see if the car gets power. We'll put the key on, and hopefully no sparks. Nothing. That's embarrassing. Okay, something's not hooked up. I'm gonna double check the wiring real quick and try again. Rookie mistake. The main power line to the chassis that connects on the bottom. This one's on the top. So I just have to move the pin up one notch and we should be all set. Now I'm extra nervous. I see lights. We have lights. Perfect. The chassis is now wired. That is all set. So that's really good news. So I still have to get the main fuse for the battery and of course make a battery tray, but it's late. I'm gonna hold it off. The chassis gets power. Fantastic news. Drivetrain is fully hooked up, which is sick. We now have a shifter, and yeah, let's actually my intercooler came in today and I want to see it. It looks a little smaller than I anticipated, so let's check it out. This thing's so puny. Well, it's a lot smaller than I anticipated. Now, the way I ordered my intercooler is I measured the dimensions at the front of the Z, and I went on CX Racing's website, and they sell basically intercoolers of all dimensions, and I looked up the intercooler that made the most sense, and I kind of wish I was looking for something skinny, but I couldn't find anything with the width I needed, with the length I wanted, and so I went with this to make it work. Now, my SLR for now is pretty stock, and if anyone knows, the stock intercooler is probably even less than half the size of this intercooler, so I'm not too worried about it. I know it'll perform fine. I just think it looks a little funny. So I don't really have time to order another intercooler. So I think I'm gonna put it in, make it work, and then upgrade in the future. Just find something that's a little bit longer, because the width I think is perfect. So let's test fit it. All right, so instead of doing some crazy like obnoxious front mount setup that goes all the way down here, I wanted to do something like a mid mount, so it mounts up here. So as you can see, it fits in there like perfectly, but if it was about 4 or 5 inches longer, it would actually be perfect size. Luckily, it's still winter, so intake air temperatures are pretty low right now. All right, so my intercooler does look very, very small. And yes, it is small. I should probably upgrade in the future, but for now, it is perfect. Now, when your intercooler is too big, you just create all you're doing is creating a lot of lag for yourself, which you just don't want. Now, when your intercooler is too small, you have a heat stoking problem, which basically means it's not working efficiently enough to cool the air. Now, my SR setup is pretty stock for now. In the meantime, it'll work. A stock SR intercooler is probably about 1/3 of the size, surprisingly, of this little baby intercooler, but it should be fine. Never mind, I got eager and bent some mounts up. Let's see how these work. See, that fits way too perfect. Look at how perfect those mounts line up. I can adjust the height on it when I need to. Now all I have to do is make probably a bottom mount now to stabilize it, because it's kind of crooked. I'm really stoked on that. That made my life a lot easier than it should be. But you see the little window right there? It's beautiful. All right, my memory card is full. I'm gonna call it a night. Thank you guys for watching. We got a lot done. Got to get even more done tomorrow. So stay tuned. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a fantastic day. Goodbye.